about the rat?
And I'll make that, yeah. So, hello, one not. I guess today I do know that someone is here. So I'm not going to do my usual spiel about having no idea. So hello, Abbe. Yeah. For anyone else who is here, who I don't know about, hello. My name is SkitterSkreetch. You can call me Skitter, and I'm a rat trapped inside of this library where I read books. And that's basically all of what I do, really. I sometimes think I should start doing other stuff, but I'm not really sure what I should be doing otherwise. I don't have a lot of choice. There's only really books down here. Like, there's other stuff I've got, but like, not a lot of it is very good for the streaming thing. Yeah, no worries. No worries. Always glad to have you, even if you're just lurking. I appreciate you, even if Twitch don't. But yeah. Yeah, like I was saying, we do books. I'll keep trying to think of things I can do that aren't books. Not really a lot of options. One day I'll just come here and hang out and talk to you, and there'll be enough people here that we can just do the old stream like that. Until that day, I think I'm stuck reading the books. So, last time we was here, I read 3 of these Katherine Mansfields you see here: Bliss, The Escape, and Taking the Veil. And then I stopped a bit early because my voice was giving me grief. I've given that a day to rest. It's a bit stronger now, so hopefully we can get through the remaining 2 without problems. But yeah, so we'll be starting with the Garden Party and then moving on through the Daughters of the Colonel. At least that's the plan. So, yeah. As always, if you miss something and need me to go over it again, if you have questions about the story, if there's something you want to say, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to stop and have a chat. And if there is no such interjection, I'll also be stopping probably at the end of these. These are like semi-short, so I'll probably just go through and stop at the end and do a little bit of commentary on the text. So, without further ado, unless there's anything anyone wants to tell me, or I guess anything wants to tell me as well, I'll begin. The Garden Party. And after all, the weather were ideal. They could not have had a more perfect day for a garden party if they had ordered it. Windless, warm, the sky without cloud. Only the blue were veiled with an haze of light gold, as is sometimes in early summer. The gardener had been up since dawn, mowing the lawns and sweeping them, until the grass and the dark flat rosettes where the daisy plants had been seen to shine. As for the roses, you could not help but feeling they understood that roses are the only flowers that impress people at garden parties. The only flowers that everybody is certain of knowing. Hundreds, yeah, literally hundreds, had come out on a single night. The green bushes bowed down as though they had been visited by archangels. Breakfast was not yet over before the men came and put up the marquee. Where do you want the marquee put, Mother? My dear child, it's no use asking me. I'm determined to leave everything to you children this year. Forget I am your mother. Treat me as an honoured guest. But Meg could not possibly go and supervise the men. She had washed her hair before breakfast, and she sat drinking coffee in a green turban with a dark wet curl stamped on each cheek. Joe's, the butterfly, always coming down in a sink petticoat and a kimono jacket. You'll have to go, Laura. You're the artistic one. Away Laura flew, still holding her piece of bread and butter. It's so delicious to have an excuse for eating out of doors. And besides, she loved having to arrange things. She always felt she could do it so much better than anybody else. 4 men in their shirt sleeves stood grouped together on the garden path. They carried staves covered with rollers of canvas, and they had big tool bags slung on their backs. They looked impressive. Laura wished now that she were not holding that piece of bread and butter, but there were nowhere to put it, and she couldn't possibly throw it away. She blushed and tried to look severe and even a little bit short-sighted as she came up to them. "Good morning," she said, copying her mother's voice. But it sounded so fearfully affected that she was ashamed and stammered like a little girl. "Oh, have you come? Is it about the marquee?" "That's right, miss," said the tallest of the men, a lanky, freckled fellow. And he shifted his tool bag, knocked back his straw hat, and smiled down at her. "That's about it." His smile was so easy, so friendly, that Laura recovered. What nice eyes he had, small but such dark blue. And as she looked at the others, they were smiling too. "Cheer up, we won't bite," their smiles seemed to say. How very nice workmen they were. And what a beautiful morning. She mustn't mention the morning, she must be businesslike. The marquee. Well, what about the lily lawn, would that do? And she pointed up to the lily lawn with the hand that didn't hold the bread and butter. They turned, they started in the direction. A little fat chap thrust out the underlip, and the tall fellow frowned. "I don't fancy it," said he. "Not conspicuous enough, you see, with a thing like a marquee." He turned to Laura in his easy way. "You ought to put it somewhere it'll give you a bang slap in the eye, if you follow me." Laura's upbringing made her wonder for a moment whether it were quite respectful of a workman to talk to her of bang slaps in the eye. But she did quite follow him. "A corner of the tennis court," she suggested. "The band's going to be in one corner." "Going to have a band, are you?" said another of the workmen. He was pale and had a haggard look. His dark eyes scanned the tennis court. What was he thinking? "Only a very small band," said Laura gently. "Perhaps you wouldn't mind so much if the band were quite small," but the tall fellow nodded. "Look here, miss, that's the place. Against those trees over there, that would do fine." Against the carracks. And the carracks trees would be hidden, and they were so lovely with their broad gleaming leaves and their clustery yellow fruit. They were like trees you imagine growing in a desert island, proud, solitary, lifting their leaves and fruits to the sun in a kind of silent splendour. Must they be hidden by a marquee? They must. Already the men had shouldered their staves and were making for the place. Only the tall fellow were left. He bent down, pinched a sprig of lavender, put his thumb and forefinger to his nose and snuffed up the smell. When Laura saw the gesture, she forgot all about the carracks in her wonder at him caring for things like that. Caring for the smell of lavender. How many men that she knew would have done such a thing? How extraordinarily nice workmen they were, she thought. Why couldn't she have workmen for friends rather than silly boys she danced with who come to Sunday night supper? She would get on much better with men like these. It's all the fault, she decided, as the tall fellow drew something on the back of an envelope, something that was to be hooped up or left to hang, with these absurd class distinctions. Well, for her part, she didn't feel them. Not a bit, not an atom. And now there come the chock chock of wooden hammers. Someone whistled, someone sang out, "You're right there, matey, matey!" The friendliness of it, just to prove how happy she was, to show the tall fellows how at home she felt. Now she despised super conventions. Laura took a big bite of her bread and butter as she stared at the drawing. She felt just like a work girl. Laura, where are you? Telephone, Laura," a voice cried from the house. "Coming." Away she skimmed, over the lawn, up the path, up the steps, across the veranda and into the porch. At the hall her father and Laurie were brushing their hands, ready to go to the office. "I say, Laura," said Laurie very fast, "you might give a squiz in my coat before afternoon, see if it wants pressing." "I will," she said. Suddenly she couldn't stop herself. She ran at Laurie and gave him a small, quick squeeze. "I do love parties, don't you?" gasped Laura. "Rather," said Laurie's warm, boyish voice, and off he squeezed his sister too, and gave her a gentle push. "Dash off to the telephone, old girl." "The telephone? Yes, oh yes. Kitty, good morning, dear. Come to lunch. Do, dear. Delighted, of course. It will only be a very scratch meal, just a sandwich crust and broken meringue shells and what's left over. Yes, isn't it a perfect morning? Your wife? Oh, I certainly should. Oh, one moment. Hold the line, Mother's calling. And Laura sat back. What, Mother? Can't hear? Mrs. Sheridan's voice floated down the stairs. Tell her to wear that sweet hat she had on last Sunday. Mother says you're to wear that sweet hat you had on last Sunday. Good. 1 o'clock. Bye-bye. Laura put back the receiver, flung her arms over her head, took a deep breath and stretched and let them fall. Ah, she sighed. And the moment after the sigh, she sat up quickly. She was still, listening. All the doors in the house seemed to be open. The house were alive with soft, quick steps and running voices. The green baize door that led to the kitchen region swung open and shut with a muffled thud, and now there come a long, chuckling, absurd sound. It was the heavy piano being moved on its stiff casters. But the air, if you stopped to notice, was the air always like this. Little fat winds were playing chase in the tops of the windows, out the doors, and there were 2 tiny spots of sun, one on the ink pot, one on the silver photograph frame playing too. Darling little spots, especially the one on the ink pot lid. It was quite warm, a warm little silver star. She could have kissed it. The front doorbell pealed, and there sounded the rustle of Sadie's print skirt on the stairs. The man's voice murmured. Sadie answered, careless. I'm sure I don't know. Wait, I'll ask Miss Sheridan. Oh, what is it, Sadie? Laura came into the hall. It's the florist, Miss Laura. It were indeed. There, just inside the door, stood a wide shallow tray full of pots of pink lilies. No other kind, nothing but lilies, canna lilies, big pink flowers, wide open raging, almost frighteningly alive on a bright crimson stems. Oh, Sadie, said Laura, and the sound was like a little moan. She crouched down as if to warm herself at the blaze of lilies. She felt they were in her fingers, on her lips, growing in her breast. That's some mistake, she said faintly. Nobody ever ordered so many. Sadie, go and find Mother. At the moment, Mrs. Sheridan joined them. It's quite all right, she said calmly. Yes, I ordered them. Aren't they lovely? She pressed Laura's arm. I was passing the shop yesterday and saw them in the window. I suddenly thought for once in my life I shall have enough canna lilies. A garden party will be a good excuse. But I thought you said you didn't mean to interfere, said Laura. Sadie had gone. The florist man was still outside at his van. She put her arm around their mother's neck and gently, very gently, she bit her mother's ear. My darling child, you wouldn't like a logical mother, would you? Don't do that. Here's the man. He carried more lilies, still another old tray. Bank them up just inside the door on both sides of the porch, please, said Mrs. Sheridan. Don't you agree, Laura? Oh, I do, Mother. In the drawing room, Meg, Jose, and little good hands had at last succeeded in moving the piano. Why is my throat giving me grief again? Oh, dear rest, Lord. Now, we put this Chesterfield against the wall and move everything out of the room except the chairs, don't you think? Quite. Hans, move these tables into the smoking room and bring a sweeper to take the marks off the carpet. Oh, one moment, Hans. Jose loved giving orders to the servants, and they loved obeying her. I guess it's Josie? It's spelled J-O-S-E, so... She always made them feel they were taking part in some drama. Tell Mother and Miss Laura to come here at once. Very good, Miss Jose. She turned to Meg. I want to hear what the piano sounds like, just in case. I'm asked to sing this afternoon. Let's try over This Life is Weary. Pom-ta-ta-ta, tea-ta. The piano burst out so passionately that Josie's face changed. She clasped her hands. She looked mournfully and enigmatically at Nova and Laura as they came in. This life is weary. A tear has sighed, a love that changes. This life is weary, a tear has sighed, a love that changes, and then goodbye. But the word goodbye, and although the piano sounded more desperate than ever, her face broke into a brilliant, dreadfully unsympathetic smile. Aren't I in good voice, Mummy? She breathed. This life is weary, hope comes to die. Dream awakening. But now Sadie interrupted them. What is it, Sadie? If you please, Mum, cook says you have to cut the little flags for the sandwiches. Flags for the sandwiches, Sadie? Echoed Miss Sheridan dreamily. And the children knew by her face that she hadn't got them. Let me see, she said to Sadie firmly. Tell cook I'll let her have them in 10 minutes. Said he won't. Now, Laura, said her mother quickly, come with me into the smoking room. I've got the names somewhere on the back of an envelope. You'll have to write them out for me. Meg, go upstairs this minute and take the wet thing off your head. Josie, run and finish the dressing room this instant. Do you hear me, children? I shall have to tell your father when he comes home tonight. And Josie, pacify cook if you do go into the kitchen, will you? I'm terrified of her this morning. The envelope were found at last behind the dining room clock, though how it got there Miss Sheridan could not imagine. One of you children must have stolen it out of my bag, because I remember vividly. Cream, cheese and lemon curd. Have you done that? Yes. Egg, and Miss Sheridan held the envelope away from her. It looks like mice. It can't be mice, can it? Olive pet, said Laura, looking over her shoulder. Yes, of course, olive. What a horrible combination it sounds, egg and olive. They were finished at last, and Laura took them off to the kitchen. She found Josie there pacifying the cook, who did not look at all terrified. I've never seen such exquisite sandwiches, said Josie's voice. How many kinds did you say there were, cook? 15? 15, Miss Josie. Well, cook, I congratulate you. Cook swept up crust with the long sandwich and half and smiled broadly. A godbearer has come, announced Sadie, issuing out of the pantry. She had seen the man pass the windows. That meant the cream puffs had come. Godbers were famous for their cream puffs. Nobody ever thought of making them at home. Bring them in and put them on the table, Mago, ordered the cook. Sadie brought them in and went back to the door. Of course, Laura and Josie were far too grown up to really care about such things. All the same, they couldn't help agreeing that the puffs looked very attractive. Very. Cook began arranging them, shaking off the extra ice and sugar. Don't they carry one back to all one's parties? Said Laura. I suppose they do, said the practical Josie, who never liked to be carried back. They look beautifully light and feathery, I must say. Half one each, my dear, said Cook in her comfortable voice. Your ma won't know. Oh, impossible. Fancy cream puffs so soon after breakfast. The very idea made one shudder. All the same, 2 minutes later, Josie and Laura were looking their fingers with that absorbed inward look that only comes from whipped cream. Let's go into the garden out by the back, suggested Laura. I want to see how the men are getting on with the marquee. They're such awfully nice men. But the back door was blocked by Cook, Sadie, Godber's man, and Anne's. Something had happened. Tug, 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 clucked Cook like an agitated hen. Sadie had her hand clasped to her cheek as though she had toothache. Anne's face was screwed up in the effort to understand. Only Godber's man seemed to be enjoying himself. It was his story. What's the matter? What's happened? There's been a horrible accident, said Cook. A man killed. A man killed? Where? How? When? But Godber's man wasn't going to have his story snatched from under his nose. No, these little cottages just below here, miss. Know 'em? Of course she knows them. Where? There's a young chap living there named Carr. His horse shied at a traction engine, corner of Orchard Street this morning, and he was crying out on the back of his head. Killed. Dead, Laura stared at Godber's. Dead when they picked him up, said Godber's with relish. They were taking the body home as I come up here. And he said to the others, he left a wife and 5 little ones. Josie, come here. Laura caught hold of her sister's sleeve and dragged her through the kitchen, to the other side of the green baize door, and she paused and leaned against it. Josie, she said, horrified, how are we going to stop everything? Stop everything, Laura? Cried Josie in astonishment. What do you mean? We'll stop the garden party, of course. Why did Josie pretend? Josie was still more amazed. Stop the garden party? My dear Laura, don't be absurd. Of course we can't do anything of the kind. Nobody expects us to. Don't be so extravagant. But we can't possibly have a garden party with a man dead just outside the front gate. That really were extravagant, for the little cottages were laying themselves at the very bottom of a steep rise that led up to the house. A broad road ran between. True, there were far too near. They were the greatest possible arsehole, and they had no right to be in the neighbourhood at all. There were little mean dwellings painted chocolate brown. In the garden patches there were nothing but cabbage stalks, stick ends and tomato cans. The very smoke coming out of their chimneys were poverty-stricken. Little rags and shreds of smoke, so unlike the great silvery plumes that uncoiled from the Sheridan's chimney. Washerwomen lived in the lane, and sweeps and a cobbler, and a man whose house front was studded all over with minute bird cages. Children swarmed when the Sheridans were children swarmed. When the Sheridans were little, they were forbidden to set foot there because of the revolting language and what they might catch. But since they were grown up, Laura and Laurie on their prowls sometimes walked through. It was disgusting and sordid. They come out with a shudder, but still one must go everywhere and must see everything. So through they went. And just think of what the band would sound like to that poor woman, said Laura. Oh, Laura, Josie began to be seriously annoyed. If you're going to stop a band playing every time someone has an accident, you lead a very strenuous life. I'm every bit as sorry as you about it as you. I feel just as sympathetic. Her eyes hardened. She looked at her sister just as she used to when they were little and fighting together. You won't bring a drunken workman back to life by being sentimental, she said softly. Drunk? Who said he was drunk? Laura turned furiously on Josie. She said just as they had used that to say on the occasions, I'm going straight up to tell Mother. Do, dear, cried Josie. Mother, can I come into your room? Laura turned the big glass doorknob. Of course, my child. Well, what's the matter? What's giving you such a colour? Miss Sheridan turned around from her dressing table. She was trying on a new hat. Mother, a man's been killed, began Laura. Not in the garden, interrupted her mother. No, no. Oh, what a fright you gave me. Miss Sheridan sighed with relief and took off the big hat and held it to her knees. I'm just going to pause her to take a drink of water. Lord. Listen, Mother, said Laura, breathless and half-choking. She told the theatre story. Of course we can't have a party, can we? She pleaded. Abandon everybody arriving. They'd hear us, Mother. They're nearly neighbours. To Laura's astonishment, her mother behaved just like Josie. He rolled her bear because she seemed amused. She refused to take Laura seriously. My dear child, use your common sense. It's only by accident we've heard of him. Someone had died there normally, and I can't understand how they keep alive in those poky little holes. We should still be having our party, shouldn't we? Laura had to say yes to that, but she felt it was all wrong. She sat down on the mother's sofa and pinched a cushion for her. Mother, isn't it really terribly heartless of us? She said. Darling, Miss Sheridan got up and came over to her carrying the hat. Before Laura could stop her, she had popped it on. My child, said her mother. That hat is yours. It's made for you. It's much too young for me. I've never seen you look such a picture. Look at yourself. And she held up her hand mirror. But Mother, Laura began again. She couldn't look at herself. She turned aside. This time Mrs. Sheridan lost patience, just as Josie had done. You're being very absurd, Laura, she said coldly. People like that don't expect sacrifices from us, and it's not very sympathetic to spoil everyone's enjoyment as you're doing now. I don't understand, said Laura, and she walked quickly out of the room and into her own bedroom. There, quite by chance, the first thing she saw was this charming girl in the mirror, in a black hat trimmed with gold daisies and a long black velvet ribbon. Never had she imagined she could look like that. Is Mother right, she thought. Now she hoped her mother were right. Am I being extravagant? Perhaps it was extravagant. For just a moment she had another glimpse of that poor woman and those little children and the body being carried into the house. It all seemed blurred, unreal, like a picture in the newspaper. I'll remember it again after the party's over, she decided, and somehow that seemed quite the best plan. Lunch were over by 1:30. By 2:30 they were all ready for the fray. The green-coated band had arrived and were established in a corner of the tennis court. My dear, trilled Kitty Maitland. Aren't they two-legged frogs for words? You want to arrange them round the pond with the conductor in the middle on a leaf. Laurie laughed. Laurie arrived, and held them on his way to the dress. At the sight of him, Laurie remembered the accident again. She wanted to tell him. If Laurie agreed with the others, then it was bound to be all right, and she followed him into the hall. Laurie, hello. He was halfway upstairs when he turned around and saw Laura. He suddenly puffed out his cheeks and goggled his eyes at her. My word, Laura, you do look stunning, said Laurie. What an absolutely topping hat. Laura said faintly, Is it? And smiled up at Laurie and didn't tell him about it after all. Soon after that, people began coming in streams. The band struck up. The yard waiters ran from the house to the marquee. Wherever you looked, there were couples strolling, bending the flowers, greeting, moving on over the lawn. They were like bright birds that alighted in the Sheridan's garden for this one afternoon, on the way to where? Ah, what happiness is to be had with people who are happy. Press hands, press cheeks, smiling into eyes. Darling Laura, how well you look. What a becoming hat, child. Laura, you look quite Spanish. I've never seen you look so striking. And Laura, glowing, answered softly, Have you had tea? Why don't you have an ice? The passion fruit ices really are rather special. She ran to her father and begged him, Daddy, darling, can't the band have something to drink? And the perfect afternoon slowly ripened, slowly faded, slowly its petals closed. Never a more delightful garden party. A greater success. Quite the mess. Laura helped her mother with the good bars. They stood side by side in the porch till they were all over. All over, thank the heavens, said Miss Sheridan. Round up the others, Laura. Let's go and have some fresh coffee. I'm exhausted. Yes, it's been very successful. But oh, these parties. Why will you children insist on giving parties? and they all of them sat down on the deserted marquee. "Have a sandwich, Daddy dear. I wrote the flag." "Thanks, Mr. Sheridan." Thanks. Mr. Sheridan took a bite, and the sandwich was gone. He took another. "I suppose you didn't hear of a beastly accident that happened today, did you?" he said. "My dear," said Miss Sheridan, holding up her hand. "We did. It nearly ruined the party. Laura insisted we should put it off." "Oh, Mother!" Laura didn't want to be teased about it. "It was an horrible affair all the same," said Mr. Sheridan. "A chap was married, too. Lived just alone in the lane and leaves a wife and half a dozen kiddies, so they say." The awkward silence fell. Mrs. Sheridan fidgeted with her cup. "Really, it was very tactless, the father." Suddenly she looked up. There on the table were all those sandwiches, cakes, puffs, all uneaten, all going to be wasted. She had one of her brilliant ideas. "I know," she said. "Let's make up a basket. Let's send that poor creature some of this perfectly good food. At any rate, it will be the greatest treat to the children, don't you agree? And she's sure to have neighbours calling in and so on. What a point to have it already prepared, Laura." Prepared? Laura, she jumped up. "Get me the big basket out of the stairs cupboard." "But Mother, do you really think it's a good idea?" said Laura. Again, how curious she seemed to be different from them all. They scraps from their party. Would the poor woman really like that? "Of course, what's the matter with you today? An hour or two ago you were insisting on us being sympathetic." "Oh well," Laura ran for the basket. It was filled, it was now heaped by her mother. "Take it yourself, darling," she said. "Run down just as you are. No, wait, take the aurum lilies too. People of that class are so impressed by aurum lilies." "The stems will ruin her lace frock," said practical Jose. So they would, just in time. "Only the basket then. And Laura," her mother followed her out the marquee, "don't on any account—" "Oh, what, Mother?" "No, better not put such an idea in the child's head." No, better not put such an idea in the child's head. Nothing, run along." It was just growing dusky as Laura shut the garden gates. A big dog ran by like a shadow. The road gleamed white, and down below in the hollow the little cottages were in deep shade. How quiet it seemed after the afternoon. Here she was going down the hills to somewhere where a man lay dead, and she couldn't realise it. Why couldn't she? She stopped a minute, and it seemed to her that kisses, voices, tinkling spoons, laughter, the smell of crushed grass was somehow inside her. She had no room for anything else. How strange. She looked up at the pale sky, and all she thought was, yes, it was the most successful party. Now the broad road was crossed. The lane began smoky and dark. Women in shawls and men's tweed caps hurried by. Men hung over their palings, the children played in the doorways. A low hum came from the mean little cottages. In some of them there were a flicker of light, and a shadow, crab-like, moved across the window. Laura bent her head and hurried on. She wished now she had put on a coat. How her frock shone, and the big hat with the velvet streamer. If only it were another hat. Were the people looking at her? There must be. It were a mistake that would come, she knew. All along it were a mistake. She should go back even now. No, too late. This was the house, it must be. A dark knot of people stood outside. Inside the gate an old woman with a crutch sat in a chair watching. She had her feet on a newspaper. The voices stopped as Laura drew near. The group parted. It were those she were expected, as though they had known she were coming out. Laura was terribly nervous. Tossing the velvet ribbon over her shoulder, she said to the woman standing by, "Is this Mrs. Scott's house?" The woman, smiling queerly, said, "It is, my lass." "I want to be away from this," Jessie said. "Help me God," as she walked up the tiny path and knocked. Be away from those staring eyes, or to be covered up in anything, one of the woman's shawls even. "I'll just leave the basket and go," she decided. "I shan't even wait for it to be emptied." And the door opened. A little woman in black showed in the garden. Laura said, "Are you Miss Scott?" Before her, the woman answered, "Walk in, please, miss." And she was shut in the passage. "No," said Laura, "I don't want to come in. I only want to leave this basket. Mother sent." The little woman in the gloomy passage seemed not to have heard her. "Step this way, please, miss," she said in an oily voice, and Laura followed up. She found herself in a wretched little low kitchen, lighted by a smoky lamp. There a woman sitting before the fire. "M," said the creature who had led her in. "M, it's a young lady." She turned to Laura. She said meaningfully, "I'm her sister, miss. You'll excuse her, won't you?" "Oh, but of course," said Laura. Please don't disturb her. I only want to leave." At that moment the woman at the fire turned round. Her face, puffed up, red, with swollen eyes and swollen lips, looked terrible. She seemed as though she couldn't understand why Laura were there. What did it mean? What was this stranger standing in the kitchen with a basket? What were it all about? The poor face puckered up again. "All right, my dearie," said the other. "I think the young lady." And again she began, "You'll excuse her, miss, I'm sure." And her face swollen too, tried an oily smile. Laura only wanted to get out, to get away. She was back in the passage. The door opened. She walked straight through and into the bedroom where the dead man was laying. You'd like a look at him, wouldn't you? Said Emma's sister, and she brushed past Laura over the bed. Don't be afraid, my lass. And her voice sounded fond and sly, and fondly she drew down the sheet. He looks a picture. There's not in the shop. Come along, my dear. Laura came. There lay a young man fast asleep, sleeping so soundly, so deeply that he was far, far away from them both. Oh, so remote, so peaceful. He was dreaming, now waking up again. His head was sunk in the pillow, his eyes were closed. They were blind under the closed eyelids. He was giving up to dream. What did garden parties and baskets and lace frocks matter to him? He was far from those things. He was wonderful, beautiful. While they were laughing and while the band were playing, his smile would have come to the lane happy, happy. All is well, said that sleeping face. This is just as it should be. I am content. But all the same you had to cry, and she couldn't go out of the room without saying something to him. Laura gave a loud, childish sob. Forgive my hat, she said. This time she didn't wait for Emma's sister. She found her way out the door, down the path, past all those dark people. At the corner of the lane she met Laurie. Stepped out of the shadow. Is that you, Laura? Yes. That mother was getting quite anxious. I said, all right. Yes, quite. Oh, Laurie. She took his arm and she pressed up against him. I say, you're not crying, are you? Asked her brother. Laura shook her head. She was. Laurie put his arm round her shoulder. Don't cry, he said in his warm, loving voice. Was it awful? No, sobbed Laura. It was simply marvellous. Laurie. She stopped and looked at her brother. Isn't life, she stammered, isn't life? What life was she couldn't explain. No matter. He quite understood. Isn't it, darling? Said Laurie. That's the end of the piece. And my throat is going again. Immediately. I don't understand, man. I take care of it. I'll give it a rest day. I don't talk, I don't sing over much. I drink plenty of water, I drink tea with honey, I take my lozenges, Lord. I think I'm just going to have to take a multi-day break some point here. I don't like to. I got it in my head that I got to stream every day. Well, near enough every day. But it's just not holding up. I suppose it's bad. Like, I think this is worse than yesterday, or the day before yesterday. Because yeah, then I was like, I got through the first one. I was like, well, maybe I can push on. But this one, if I push on to the next story, I'm going to damage my throat. I can feel it. That's the problem with reading books as a thing. There's a lot of talking. And then I try and do music as well, which don't help because I damage my throat doing that too. I think I'm going to have to call this here. That's no good. That's no good at all. Why's my throat like this? Lord. Lord, oh Lord. Yeah. I haven't taken L. Well, let's do our commentary. Again, I think Katherine Mansfield is a much happier person than I am. Yeah, this sort of interplay between the garden party and the bereavement, this very happy upper class sort of event, and the lower class tragedy, and the beauty and serenity of death, all come together to make a bit of an odd story. I really don't understand how some of her luck, I think, but yeah. It's beautiful in its way, it's touching, but yeah. I must admit, I don't think I really click with her. It's a shame because I've got another one of her stories left to go. And it's made worse is that I'm just distracted because of my throat. The whole way through I was thinking, Lord, what's up with it? Don't think I gave it a fair shake there, but I don't have much else to say about it. Well, sorry for cutting it short, if you're still listening. And of course, thank you for stopping by. I do wish you all the best, but I think I'm going to have to call it here. My throat being what it is. But I do thank you anyone who did watch, or has watched, or will watch. And as always, ta-ra.